Welcome to My Morning Cup, a podcast produced by Costa Media Advisors and presented by Rockpoint Bank and EPB. Rockpoint Bank, from Chattanooga for Chattanooga. And EPB, get EPB's fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. I'm Mike Costa, your host. My guest this week is the Reverend Bernie Miller. Bernie's career has spanned being a successful radio personality, writing a Grammy-winning hit song, being a senior music executive working with the likes of Michael Jackson and Luther Vandross, and founding one of Chattanooga's better-known multicultural churches. Bernie, before we jump into a career that goes from radio to popular music to Jesus, let me ask, what's in your morning cup?
Whoa. I've got my morning cup, and it's empty right now.
Oh, it is.
But I know that we're going to fill it up with some juicy stuff this morning.
Oh, I bet we will. What do you typically drink in the morning? You said you usually have a cup in the morning.
I have a blend of two coffees. My wife likes one particular brand, and I like another. So I use half of hers and half of mine.
So you mix them together?
I do. I mix those grains together, and she likes it. And then sometimes I'll just give her hers, and I'll endure. And then sometimes I'll just give her mine, and she'll endure.
You know, and I'm jumping way ahead on this, but that's a great analogy for your church. You're taking the two different coffees and you're bringing them together.
Yeah.
And it's a great flavor.
Yeah.
And people like it.
And I saw that happen just instantly. It was because of I went to different places, met different people, and my best man, Mike Trussell, who used to own the country place, they're no longer in business, but he was my best man at my wedding, and people were amazed. I said, well, this guy I've known him ever since I was digging ditches out at Hamilton Place Mall. He says, "We're digging ditches?" I said, well, yeah. I said, when I got here, the radio station wasn't ready to go on the air yet. And so I had to work. And Jim Sattler, who was at the time the executive for EMJ, he said, you can work for me because you can just walk to work. And so the apartment building was right across the street from Hamilton Place Mall, where Bonefish is now. And so that whole area hadn't been developed yet. But my blood is over there on the concrete because I remember. But that's, it was just amazing how many people met me at that time.
Oh, I bet.
From the industry, from concrete, Gary Yerby. He and I became real good friends, he and his mom and dad, who have now passed. And I went to Woodland Park Baptist Church, and it was just amazing, all the people I was able to meet there. And then when we started our church, Wayne Barber, the late Wayne Barber, sent some of the members from Woodland Park to be there to help me grow. And so it was really a lot of different people working together on my behalf.
Everyone coming together.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to get to the church, but you've left your blood a lot of places where you've worked, and I want to kind of start at the beginning. I know you were born in North Carolina and then moved to Baltimore. Is that correct?
Yeah, my mom dragged me. I was about 3 years old, I believe, and she moved to Baltimore because her two brothers they had moved there, and they said, "You got to come up here. You can't find a decent job there," because I was in Salisbury, North Carolina.
A small southern town.
And she had to go to Raleigh, North Carolina to work every week. And so I was left with her sister. And so, and my cousin, who was with me there because she was adopted by her sister, we were picking cotton in the mornings, with them. We weren't. Well, I say picking cotton. I'm using that very generously, but we were just fooling around. But yeah, she decided she wanted a better life for herself and her son, and so she moved to Maryland.
Now, do you have siblings?
I do, and it's my my father's child.
Okay.
I'm the only child of my mom.
So you went as an only child with your mom to Baltimore.
I did.
Talk about that transition coming from North Carolina, and Baltimore, and particularly at that time was a fairly thriving industrial city.
Yeah, it was, and you worked at Bethlehem Steel. That was where most people worked during that time, and I had my time at Bethlehem Steel years later.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting city. Yeah, I learned a lot from living there and experiencing I guess the camaraderie. All of us, they were always a singing group on a corner,
Uh-huh.
and some of my friends who went on to be famous in other groups, they were singing on corners.
Well, and Baltimore was well known for that, wasn't it,
Yeah,
in
yeah, it was.
particular?
Yeah, it was. My friend, the late Damon Harris, he took Eddie's place in the Temptations, and Bubby took Smokey's place in the Miracles, and so they were all from Baltimore, and so we were all hanging out together, and it was a fun time.
And that was the origin of that sound, you
Yeah,
know, the what is it, when the word I'm looking for? That harmony
yeah,
really
yeah,
really
yeah.
came from the street corners.
Yeah, and it was part of the antebellum period. That's where the African songs started, and then you got the blues from that. You got the country music from that, and then you got the gospel from that. And then what Berry Gordy did was he took the gospel quartets and he dressed them up.
Yeah.
And so he came up with this whole Motown sound using those harmonies, but sweetening it with the music underneath it. So it wouldn't be so down, it would be more uplifting.
Yeah.
And so you got the Motown sound. And so Berry Gordy just used that whole vibe to make a lot of money.
And we know how successful he was,
Yeah.
and really, he took what already existed and just repackaged
He
it.
did. He did. And that's ingenuity,
Yeah.
and that's some of the things that I remember, and someone says, "Well, it can't be done," and I say, "Well, um, I think it can," and I just try it anyway.
Well, and you were telling me earlier about, you know, growing up in Baltimore and really at a very young age, you started working, 9 years old?
Well, yeah, I had a shoe shine box that Mr. Henry made for me, and I shined shoes outside Bella's Bar at the time, and my mom worked in Bella's Bar as a waitress. And I was a little entrepreneur. You know,
Uh-huh.
I had my shoe shine box, and I also sold a newspaper. I had a newspaper route, and I did that. And at 10 years old, I decided I wanted to buy my clothes for school. And so I made enough money from shining shoes and from serving the newspaper and my route. And I bought my first set of clothes for school. I thought was a big deal then.
Well, that is a big deal. It's a real big deal.
But I just, my mom said, "How you can't, you don't have enough money to buy it." And I thought, she said, "I can't, and I
Oh,
don't have." And I said, "No, I can." And I went out and I did it.
have you always been that positive as a kid?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
My mom wanted some money. She wanted some money from the government,
Mhm.
and she was a single mom, and so she said, one day I saw her crying. I said, "Mom, what's wrong?" She says, "I make too much money to get assistance from the federal government." I said, "Huh?" And she says, "Yeah, they said I make $1 more than the government allows." I said, $1? So I wrote the president.
Did you really?
I did. I wrote the
Who was
president.
president at the time?
I don't
Johnson?
remember, but it was in the '60s, so
Yeah.
but anyway, I got a response back from
Really?
the president's office, and they explained everything, and I didn't let my mom know, because if I'd have let her know, she probably would've kicked me all around the house, "Why you telling everybody my business?"
So your mom never knew
No,
that you got a response from the president of the United
I
States?
did, and I wish I had held on to that letter.
Oh, yeah. Because when you're a kid, you don't realize the
No.
value of those things.
No, no.
Oh, that's tremendous. You know, one other story you told me that I'd like you to touch back on was when you started shining shoes outside the bar, a competitive corner of
Yeah.
real estate, but you had a couple protectors and
I did.
not what probably people are thinking. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, Mr. Henry, who made my shoe shine box, also had 2 dogs, Lady and Duke. Duke was a boxer, later was a German Shepherd, and he says, "Whenever you're shining shoes, you can use either one of those dogs to be your protection." And so I did. So the guys used to come on the corner, and they used to take my business. And
Yeah.
so Mr. Bellis told them, "You don't have authority on this corner. Only he does." Well, they kept bothering me, and so I
And you're
asked.
like 9, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, 9.5, get me to get 10, because
Yeah.
I've yeah. So I asked Mr. Henry, I said, "Mr. Henry," I said, "What do I do?" He says, "You take one of my dogs with you." And I said, "Okay." He says, "You already walk them. They already know you." He
Yeah.
said, "You just tell them to sit, and they'll sit, and they'll watch you, and they'll protect you." And sure enough, nobody ever came on my corner ever again. One tried,
Yeah.
and one of them growled at him, and
Uh,
he left quickly.
so how long did you do that?
I did that, I know it at least a year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did that at least a year, because she moved from that, particular area, so I wasn't able to do that again.
So as you're growing up, you're working different jobs as a kid. You doing anything for fun? You hanging out with guys, playing sports?
Yeah, we would play baseball,
Yeah.
and, until I, was tripped. We played baseball on the asphalt.
Uh-huh.
And one day we were leading, and so I'm going around second base, and the guy tripped me
Oh,
on the opposing team, and I broke my wrist.
did you really?
I did, and
Yeah.
so I said, "Okay, I'm not doing this business. I'm not doing sports. I'm gonna do something else." And so years later, I had an opportunity to do that.
So music has been a huge part of your life, and Baltimore, particularly at that time, was known for, I guess, lack of better description, the doo-wop bands,
Yeah.
the guys in the corner sing. Were you ever involved with any of that friendly singing?
No, I can't carry a tune. I don't know the harmonies. I can sing by myself, but I can't harmonize. I don't know what notes to go along with any of the notes, but I can write lyrics.
Well, you know what? That makes me feel better because I have no musical ability other than playing the stereo.
Well, I could play the radio pretty well,
Yeah.
and loud. There are certain songs that I really liked, and I played them loudly in my mom's apartment, and, but yeah, it was an interesting time musically during that time. It was the best music,
Yeah.
that I think, that was ever done, and it's still a lot of people trying to reinvent the wheel, but they need to just go back to what worked. And, melodies and harmonies and stories, those are the things that, attract people to music now. It's not, how gross you can be lyrically, but it's how clever you can be
Yeah.
lyrically and tell a story.
The best writers are able to use an economy of words.
Yeah.
They don't have to use, as you said, some of the gross words or curse words.
Yeah.
If you're good enough and smart enough, you find the right word.
Yeah. I mean, or get a thesaurus.
Yeah.
There's a word out there that'll
Yeah.
rhyme with that.
Yeah.
Just have to get the right books. And
The music writer's best friend.
it is.
A
It
thesaurus.
is. Now on the internet, I have a thing called Master Writer, and I use it to write little pithy things for my messages on Sundays, because I want them to take home a line, something that's memorable, and I kind of use something either alliterate or rhyme
Yeah.
something, and
Something, a hook,
yeah,
for lack of a better term.
yeah, and I have it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Generally I call them sticky notes, and I put them up on the screen. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take a picture of it and post it on their social media page, and
Yeah.
it's floating out there. But you have to utilize what you have, and let people use what you have to their advantage. Then you realize they like it, and then they let their friends know, "I like
Yeah.
this," and it's another way of advertising.
Well, and it builds on itself. It's all
Yeah.
organic.
Yeah.
Now, you got bit by the broadcasting bug pretty early, didn't you?
I did. I was I was coming out of, our apartment building, and people across, the hall from us had moved, and their papers were stacked up, and so I was about 15 years old, and I got that, paper, for that particular day, and I stopped by the radio station, and, I went in and I sold the newspaper to them, and they gave me some money because I wanted to use the money to buy me something, and so I went back the next day and tried to sell the next day's newspaper, and Ernie said, "We get a newspaper, okay? We get it in the newsroom, but I figured you needed some money, and I helped you out that day." He said, "But We don't need a newspaper. He said, but what we do need is someone like you to read this thing called Accent on Youth. And it's about 30 seconds. Can you read? I said, yeah. He said, well, come back after school and then I'll have you read it for me. And so I read it for him when I came back after school. And he says, why don't you come back and let me see what I can do with you? Because I think there's something in you. And so he taught me everything about editing in the production room and how to edit beats. You always have the kick drum. If you're going to if you want to match up something that's musically induced, you want to find a kick drum in the song. And if you're going to have a kick drum, you can take out a kick drum to match, and you put in another kick drum from another section. And so it's always a flow, and you never know. It never misses a beat because you got the kick drum. And I learned those little sneaky techniques. So, and when editing music, I can do that just like that. I mean, I've done that for my own program when something is like 5 minutes long and I want it to be 3.
Yeah.
I don't like to fade it out because it's not a great place to fade it out. So I'll find the end of it and splice it together. Not splicing anymore, but I edit it. And technology is such that you can do that without any tape or anything. So
yeah, you learned with razor blades and tape.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. And the grease pens.
Yeah. How long did you work at that station? Or
I worked there until Mr. Feldman said, he was the manager. He said, Bernie, he said, you've been hanging around here a long time. In fact, you've been hanging around here for about 90 days. And he said, you've been working. And you can't be around here working without us paying you. And I'm saying, huh? So he says, I want you to go get a Social Security card and a worker's permit. Well, that's what you needed back then. Now you're born
Right.
with a Social Security card. You know,
But you're right. You had to apply when you got that first job as a kid.
That's right. And so that was the best thing for me now because those quarters mean a lot, as you get older,
Yeah, they do.
And so I got my worker's permit and my Social Security card, and they started paying me for hanging around the radio station and learning the tools of broadcasting.
That's a great point you make. You were being paid to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were learning your career, and they were paying you to do that.
And I didn't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it was just something to do, making some side money and what have you. But later on, I went on the air.
As a kid, did you always have that initiative to figure it out for yourself?
Yeah, I did. It's just something that's in me, and I never gave up.
Yeah.
And I was homeless for a brief period, but I just never gave up. I realized that something was going to happen, and I was going to. It was going to turn out okay. I just didn't give up. I did anything I could to make $1.
Yeah.
Honestly, but I never gave up. I always looked at the brighter side.
So you're at the radio station in Baltimore. They're paying you. What's next for you?
Well, I got fired because I got too big for my britches. And after a year or two, I think it was about 17 years old, and I just decided I was going to go to New York to see a cousin of mine in the wintertime on a Friday. And I had to be at work on Sunday morning at 5. Well, my cousin drove to New York. It snowed in New York. It's wintertime.
You didn't make it back for your shift,
I didn't make
did
it
you?
back. And that wasn't the first time I had messed up by not showing up on my job at the appointed time.
Yeah.
And so the boss called me in, the manager, and he said, I'm going to fire you. And I said, oh. And I thought, I was popular DJ, but he's going to fire me? I'm thinking, he's not going to fire me. And I'm sitting there with my shades on, and he says, take those stupid shades off and look at me eyeball to eyeball. He says, you need to find some humility. And I'm thinking, what? And you're not going to fire me. I'm thinking, he said, so today is your last day. We'll have a check for you. You can come back and pick it up before 5. And I was out, and I just started doing jobs everywhere. I was at new cars, I would get them ready, prep them for the buyer, and then I started working in Bethlehem Steel, and I did that for a while, and
So
then
you just scrambled.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
What did that experience teach you?
Be humble. Never take anything for granted,
Yeah.
because you may be on top of the world today, but tomorrow anything could happen.
Comes quickly too,
Yep.
doesn't it?
Yep, it does.
When you least expect it. So you're working odd jobs. Did you get back into radio?
I did. Someone found out well, not they knew I was out of a job, but someone from Nebraska came and talked to a friend of mine who was a manager at the station that I left, and said, "I'm looking for someone that can be our news director." He said, "You know anybody that's looking for a job?" So he says, "Well, yeah, Bernie's looking for a job." And he says, "Well, can he read?" He says, "Well, yeah. Is he a news director?" He says, "Well, no." He says, "But he needs a job." So they gave me a job as news director in Nebraska.
So you go from Baltimore to Nebraska,
Yeah.
where you probably don't know anyone,
No one.
and you're not a news director.
No.
So how did that go?
Well, I was there until the morning guy got sick. The morning guy got sick, and because I was doing the morning news and the news director, they asked me to do his show.
Yeah.
Well, they heard me on the radio, and they go, "This guy is more of a DJ than he is a news person." And so they called me into the office, and they said, "Look, we need to move on from you." And so I said, "Okay." Well, I went over to the top 40 station, and they hired me immediately.
Yeah.
I was a news person, and so I worked there until I felt like I wanted to do something else, and they had an opening in Philadelphia, and so I went through Texas because I had a friend there. But I stayed in Texas because they didn't have anybody to work the evening shift, and the person that they wanted to come, he wasn't ready yet. And so, as it turned out, he never did come. He said, because he and I were friends, he said, "You take that job."
Where in Texas?
And this was at Fort Worth, KNOK, and Fort Worth. And so,
Well, you're hitting some pretty big markets as a young kid.
yeah.
To be in radio. I mean, Baltimore at 17, and where in Nebraska was it? Lincoln? Omaha. And then all of a sudden you're in Fort Worth.
Yeah. And a friend of mine let me, he had me there working there, and he finally did hire me. And I met some people in the music business, and from Memphis, and Willie Mitchell's daughter, and she said, You write?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, my dad, he's always looking for songs. So if you ever get into Memphis, look us up." Well, I got into Memphis, and I looked them up.
So what was the progression for you of stations after Fort Worth?
Fort Worth, and I went to Memphis.
Then to Memphis,
Mhm.
and at WLOK, one of the classic call signs in Memphis.
Yeah. I went there, worked there for at least a couple of years, and then I went down to New Orleans because there was an opening there, and they had an AOR station, and so album-oriented rock, and so I worked there with a friend of mine, and Gary Burbank, and so he had me on the FM station, and I did a good job there, and then they had an opening on the AM station, which was more rock, top 40, and so I did that, but it was overnight. But I didn't care. I was on the number one. WNOE was kind of like the number one station in town.
Were you bitten by the broadcast bug? Where you?
Oh, yeah.
You were following it everywhere it took you.
I wanted to get to the number 1, 2, or 3 market, because that's where you make your money. And I finally got there by way of several other places, one being California. I was out in Oakland, and a friend of mine, well, the guy who fired me, let me go back. The guy that fired me because I had not shown up, he also told me in that meeting, he says, you're not good enough to work for me.
Wow.
And he said, you're not professional enough. And he says, you're not. And I never forgot that. Well, he was out in California, and I was at WNOE. I mean, at the Big Ape, WAPE, and I was down there, and I sent him an air check, and he called me up, and he said, man, you have changed. He said, you sound great. He said, I got an opening. And can you come? I said, no. I said, I like it here. He said, what are you making? I told him. He said, I can double it. I said, what? He says, yeah, I can double it. So I said, well, put it in writing. So at the time, he sent me a telegram. That was back then. So he sent me a telegram. And I looked at it, and he says, it's a union, and, you'll be part of the union and all that. And I thought, wow. And so I showed it to a friend of mine who worked there, production director. He says, I don't believe that. And I said, well, it's right here in the telegram. He read it. He says, wow, I believe that. And so at the time, Greaseman, he was, I worked with him, and he was one of those names that I'm sure.
He was a national name, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he and I were real good friends. And so he said, B, go get it, man. He said, make us proud. And so I went to California. I'm thinking, okay, the next step is either LA, because, that's number 3 or 2, and depending on how you look at it. Well, the guy that was the program director in California, his friend was his fraternity buddy up in Chicago, and he sent him my air check. And so his friend in Chicago said, man, I want that guy to film my shot, my show, my thing at the end, afternoon drive. He says, we're going to be staying on longer, and we're going to need to hire 2 people, but I need an afternoon person, and that's the guy I want, your guy. He says, man, you can't have my guy. I said, he just got here, been in 90 days. And he says, man, please, let him come up here. He said, why did you send me the air check if you didn't?
Right.
So he said, okay. So he came in and talked to me. I said, man, I just got here. He says, I asked him, I said, well, what number is Chicago on the scale, man? He said, they're number 2. I said, oh, my. I said, well, who's number 1? He says, New York. I said, okay. So I said, well, I'm going to stay here with you. He said, you are? I said, yeah. So I said, okay. So then his friend said, Tom Joyner is his name. He said, John Johnson wants him to come up here for an interview before he says no. And so I said, okay. So I went up for an interview, and I came back and I said, no. Well, John Johnson, he owned Ebony and Jet at the time.
Yeah.
He doesn't take no.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he had the manager call me up and say, well, how much do you want? And I said, well, so I gave him a figure. I gave the manager a figure, and he said, I'll call you back. It was like less than 15 minutes later, and John Johnson said, I got to have him. I'll pay it. And so I told my boss, and he said, what? I said, well, you told me to go up there for the interview. I said, so I'm going. So John Johnson said, I want to see you in a week. And I told my boss, I said, hey, man, they want me to come up in a week. He says, oh, no, no. So a week later, John Johnson said, you don't have to pack anything. All you need to do is bring a suitcase so you can change some clothes, but we're going to move everything for you.
Wow.
And I said, man, this is a deal.
You got to work with, some stalwarts like John Johnson and Tom Joyner. I mean, nationally recognized folks.
Yeah, I learned a lot over the years.
I bet.
Yeah.
I want to take you back to Memphis for a little bit, because I want to talk about songwriting. Talk about you working at WLOK and how you got into high records and songwriting.
Well, I met his daughter, Willie Mitchell's daughter, and Willie knew I was coming, and so he said, when you get to Memphis, just look me up. And he gave me his number, and so I did, looked him up.
And for people who don't know who Willie Mitchell is, he was a producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, he produced for Al Green, and Let's Stay Together, he wrote that. He wrote several of Al Green's hit songs, and so, and he was also a great trumpeter, and the guy was just an extraordinary producer, and so I hung around the studio. He said, you can come around anytime you want. And so I did, and hung around the studio long enough to write a song or two. And next thing was history.
Well, let's kind of put a little more detail into how it just happened. you're banging around on the piano a
Yeah,
little bit.
I'm in the studio.
And you come up with a chord progression that
Yeah.
you're playing.
Yeah.
And who is it? Don Bryant?
Don Bryant. Yeah, I'm in the recording studio room where they have all the instruments and everyone that would be playing, and I'm on the baby grand and I'm playing some chords, and Don Bryant walked in and he heard him and he says, "What's that?" I said, just something I'm just piddling around with," and he said, "Play it again." I played it for him. He said, "That goes along with something that I think that would go with something I'm working with." And I said, "Okay." He says, "Let me get back to you." So I played it for him again, and he took note of it. And then about less than a week later, he and I got together again and at his house. And so he said, "Here's what I got." He started playing, and I said, "Oh." I said, "Give me a pen and a pad." So his wife gave me a pen and a pad, Ann Peebles. And so I started writing, "Sounds like rain against my window, bringing back sweet memories." And then he says, "Oh, window pane, do you remember how sweet it used to be?" And I said, "When we were together." He says, "Everything was so grand. Now that we parted, there's one sound I can't stand." And so we went back to "I Can't Stand the Rain."
Yeah.
We started out with "Sounds like rain against my window," but then the title, the hook became "I Can't Stand the Rain against my window." And so it changed when we got in the studio. Willie Mitchell changed it to open with "I Can't Stand the Rain" because that was the obvious thing. And so Ann Peebles wanted to add some sounds of something percolating or timbales, giving it the sound of the rain, and so that was really the catchy thing. And boop, 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 and everybody knows that. Whenever you hear that, it's been on Coke commercials, it's been on other commercials, Pella windows and what have you. And man, I mean, it's been a wonderful earner of funds.
So you and Don Bryant and Don's wife at the time, Ann Peebles, who's a noted singer, wrote basically the song.
Yeah.
She recorded it, got a hit out of it.
Yep.
And then it was recorded how many years later by Tina Turner?
Oh, it was, I guess about 79, somewhere around there.
79, 80 when she...
Yeah, but...
was it on the Tiny Dancer album?
No, it was on Private Dancer.
Private Dancer, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Tiny Dancer is Elton John.
That's pretty good.
Two different people.
But yeah, and what happened with that was Capitol Records was giving her one chance to be able to break into the market again because they felt she was too old, she has been, and what have you.
You're talking about Tina Turner?
Tina Turner. And so she called Willie Mitchell. She says, "Willie, I want to know, can I record I Can't Stand the Rain?" And he said, "Well, yeah, but do me a favor." And she says, "What?" "Do not do it the way Ann did it." He said, "You put your own signature on it." And she did.
Yeah.
And it was a hit overseas in England and Germany and all those other places. It didn't catch on here as a single, but it was an international hit. And but the person that was over that particular project at Capitol Records later became the person who hired me at CBS Sony in New York because a friend of mine was riding with him on the plane, and he said, "Man, I need an A&R guy in the black division." And he said, "Bernie Miller." He says, "Bernie Miller, who is he?" He said, "Well, he wrote I Can't Stand the Rain." He says, "He wrote I Can't Stand the Rain?" He says, "Man, I was executive on that album by Tina." He says, "That's the guy." He said, "He wrote that?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what is he doing?" He said, "Picking hits." He says, "What?" He said, "Well, he's in Billboard all the time. Every time there's a song that's out and people wanted other people to pick it up, they always ask Bernie to endorse it." And all the record companies know if he endorses it and he has a following, everybody else is going to fall in line. And he said, it happens all the time.
You were an influencer before influencing became a thing.
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But and that's something that, I mean, Ray Anderson, who called me up about Sade to edit that song, and he also knew that I could edit, and he knew I knew songs, how they were composed, and how I could help out in a lot of different ways other than just signing artists.
Now, you're moving into A&R, right?
Yeah.
Explain to folks who don't know what A&R is.
A&R is artist and repertoire. And my job is to sign artists and those that are signed find producers and music for them if they don't have a producer. Most of them didn't have producers, so most of them would come to the record companies in need of a song, a hit song. They would have a hit sound, but they didn't have a hit song. And it was frustrating at times because you got a great group, but you don't have a music identity that goes along with them. Ideally, if now when you walk into a studio or to a record company, they want to know, do you have any producers already producing for you? And do you have a hit song? The record companies now don't want the artists that are kind of like what they are now, what they were back then, that they were career artists, because they lose money. The longer you stay, the more money you make off of your song being sold, and you become a liability in the end because they're not making much money off of you.
Yeah, they've already invested what they're going to invest to build you up, and all of a sudden you're a hit, and they're not seeing as much as that.
And if you get back then, most companies, after it's all said and done with the sales, marketing, and promotions and all that, if they got back a penny off of a dollar, they were happy.
Well, and isn't that one of the big arguments of because the writer has always been compensated.
Yeah.
If you're just a performer performing other people's songs, you make your money off of record sales and performing live, right?
Right. And record sales,
not much.
Yeah. No. So you really make your money off of personal appearances, and a lot of people think they can make a career out of selling records, but you can. But you also need to either write or produce your songs, or co-produce, so you can get some other money.
Because that gives you the royalties of every time it's played.
Yeah.
Don't they call that mailbox money?
It does. I don't know if now they don't send it to the mailbox, man.
It just goes right in the bank.
I hate it because I like signing the checks. I like put my name on the back and looking at it, and holding it in my hand. I hate that, but modern technology.
Talk a little bit about your A&R career, because you worked with some major artists like Michael Jackson.
Well, Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Sade, and others. It was interesting with Michael. We were called into a meeting after Thriller, and Tommy Mottola, who was Mariah Carey's ex-husband, he the office, the conference room was right across from my office. He came down from his floor, and he said, "Let's meet. We all need to meet." So we were thinking, okay, Michael Jackson has got another song, another album after Thriller, and we were excited because he's the CEO and the president.
And Thriller did okay, right?
Yeah. And so we got in there, and so he said, Quincy Jones sent me the album to follow Thriller, overnighted it, and I sent it back to him, overnighted, with a note: send me an album with some hits.
Wow.
And so I'm thinking,
you do that to Michael Jackson?
Yeah. And Quincy Jones?
Yeah, and Quincy Jones.
I mean, so we're all going, whoa, wait a minute. So let me tell you about Bad. So Michael was furious. Quincy was furious. But they didn't have a hit. And so Michael wrote 8 out of the 11 songs on Bad. And all of the singles that they released, Michael wrote. They were hits. So he named the album Bad because Tommy Mottola said the album before that was sent back was bad.
Oh, that's funny.
So he named his album Bad, and it was kind of like in your face, Tommy.
Yeah.
You say it's bad. Well, I'm gonna name this Bad.
What a great story. I mean, what a thing for Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones to do. I'll show you Bad.
Yeah. Now, and he released that I'm Bad, and so it was funny. It was really funny. Nobody really put 2 and 2 together. But I saw what he was doing, and when he came out with Bad, I said, and I had the story. I said, that's why he named it Bad. And he said, yeah, I'm bad, but I'm bad in a good way.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
8 out of the 11 songs he wrote personally by himself. Well, one was a duet.
As someone who writes songs, how difficult is that?
It's you really have got you gotta have a golden pen 'cause, but now, I mean, you gotta have a golden pen. You really do. You have to think, outside the box, and what do you wanna write about? And, for me, I can write gospel songs going to bed
Yeah.
because I studied the word. And so, and being a songwriter, being able to make things rhyme and then coming up with little things to paint pictures, I like doing that. And so, I've been blessed with that ability. So it's, but it takes a lot to just get one song.
How long did you do A&R?
I did it for almost, it's 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years.
Any other artists like Luther Vandross or Sade?
Yeah, well, Luther called me up, and he had his new album out, and it was about ready to be released, and he had a song on the album that he liked, and so he called me up and he says, "Bernie, this is a song that I like on my album." He says, "What do you think?" I said, "I like it." He says, "Well, which one do you like?" I said, "I like Any Love." He said, "Why do you like that one?" I said, "It's just so melodic." And I said, "I like it. And it has a R&B and pop flavor." And I said, "I think it will probably hit both markets and it'll be a great hit for you." He says, "Well, then I need to change my album title." I said, "Well, no, 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 no." I said, "They already, the art department has already put together everything." I said, and they've already got you on launch.
Yeah.
I mean, you're about ready to take off on the launch pad here, and Michael is coming behind you. And I said, if they don't release you, it's going to jam up the works here. And he
Yeah.
says, "I want Any Love." And I said, well, Luther, that's between you and your manager. I said, "You guys," I said, "but leave me out of it."
Yeah.
He said, "No, I trust you." He said, "You told me you're a radio man and you're a songwriter." He says, "I'm going with you." Any Love was a huge hit, and he named the album Any Love.
So the art department and everyone else had to scrap everything
did.
and start. And it sounds like your job was to kind of manage that whole process through, almost take the artist by hand.
Yeah, well, I took a lot of heat for that
I
from my
bet you
senior
did.
VP. My
Yeah.
senior VP came down and says, "Are you out of your mind?" I said, "What do you want me to do, lie to him?"
Yeah.
I said, "I'm here. I'm in charge of the Black division. I sign off on these things like you." I said, "You send them, they send them to you, the paperwork, and I have to co-sign, and so he asked my opinion, and I gave it to him."
So you're having success in the music business. How do you end up in Chattanooga?
Yeah. Well, they didn't renew my contract because
Ah.
Tommy Mottola wanted his own people in there. And so I left. And as it turned out, I was at home, in my apartment, and I was doing I was doing some voice work and stuff, what have you. So I went to the studio and I saw this magazine. It was called Radio and Records at the time. And they had an opening in Chattanooga for a Christian station. And, and so I don't want to go back into radio again.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, yeah. So I took the magazine home anyway, and but sure enough, I got up the next day convicted, and God said, "You work for everybody else. You don't want to work for me." And it was a Christian station, and I said, "Oh boy!" So I called them up and I said, "Look, what do y'all want?" And they said, "Is the opening still there?" And he says, "Well, yeah. Why don't you send us an air check?" And so I said, "Well, I'll make one here at the house." I said, "I haven't been in radio in a while." So I made him an air check at my house because I had studio to do that. Well, I had to set the equipment to do that. And so I sent it to him with a note. It was a matter-of-fact note, not one begging for a job. I didn't want the job.
Yeah.
Well, it just so happened, Jim Sattler read the letter, and he's that kind of person. It appealed to him. He said, "I don't want him. Tell him to come down and let's interview him live."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm talking myself out of a job. I'm really talking myself into a job.
Because you appealed to Jim Sattler.
I appealed to Jim Sattler.
That's an interesting point because, and you used I think the right term, beg for a job. So many people, when they're looking for a job, will send cover letters that are almost begging.
Yeah.
Please, please, no. Where I can imagine the person reading that does not see confidence in that person.
But okay.
Where if you take the approach that you took, a matter of fact,
Yeah.
of here's what I've got, bit more confidence in
Yeah,
it.
yeah. They brought me down, and then they said, "Well,
Which station was it?
it was RX 107.
Okay.
That's what it was called at the time, RX 107, and it was supposed to be a quasi Christian station, but you didn't really talk about God. You just played, Baby, Baby, and
Yeah.
Sandy and Sandy Patty, and you played all the newsboys, and you played all those things, but you didn't. The announcers didn't talk about
It
God.
wasn't preaching.
No,
Yeah.
and no paraphernalia, no Bibles or anything like that in there, no tracts or anything in the offices or anything like that. And it was later occupied. The building was occupied later by J103,
Okay.
and then they moved out to where they are now.
So you come to Chattanooga and you're back on the air. What
Yeah.
was your on the air name?
Bernie Miller.
Oh, okay. Because you had some different ones over the years.
Yeah, I did, and I worked for Jim Sattler, digging ditches and picking up trash. And having worked, and as an executive, he told me I was going to work for him. I'm thinking I'm going to work as an executive, and I go across the street, and the guy gives me a hard hat and tells me to find a post hole digger, and tells me to dig up a sign, Toys R Us down there on the corner. He says, "I want you to get that ready for them to come and dig it up, pick it up and take it away." And I'm thinking, what is a post hole digger?
Uh-huh. And that happened because the radio station wasn't ready?
It wasn't ready yet. They were waiting for the FCC to finalize their license, and
Yeah.
it was 90 days. No, it was 6 months later, because it was in June, and they didn't go on the air until December.
So ownership decides, well, we're paying you. We got other stuff to do. So here's a hard hat.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't working for the station. I was
Oh.
working for Jim Sattler
Oh,
for
directly.
EMJ Construction.
Okay.
I was working for them, and I was making like $350 an hour.
Did you ever step back and go, what did I do? I didn't want to come to Chattanooga and this station, and all of a sudden I'm digging post holes.
I knew it was some humbling
Yeah.
that I was going through, and God was just trying to get me back down to where He could work with me.
Yeah.
And so it was a wonderful time for me, because I met a lot of people in the construction business out there, and a lot of those people helped me along the way when we built our church on Moore Road. And in fact, the superintendent that was the boss over me, I was the boss over him, because he was working with another construction company that built our church. And so I'm his boss. But I led him to the Lord when I was over in Hamilton Place. And so we got to be good friends.
Well, and let's talk a bit about your church. It sounds like about that time, you tell me, about that time, did you start thinking about forming a church?
No.
How did that come about?
That came about because Woodland Park had a thing called Timothy School, and their elders had prayed about who they wanted to be a part of this new school, and where they would teach them from the church how it operates from the ground up. And so they called me and says, "Look, we're praying, and we think that you're the one that God wants to use in this, or wants to be in this class and in this particular teaching and growing," and because they knew I loved studying and all that. And so I said, so they asked me the question. They says, "Well, have God called you into the ministry?" I said, "No, I don't know. No." So he said, "Well, you got time." So a couple months later, Rick Shepard, he called me up and he said, "So Bernie, so what has the Lord said?" I said, I haven't talked to him about it. He said, "Well, you talk to him about it, because I need an answer. With no pressure. But about a month from now, we're going to kick it all off, and we'd like you to be a part of it." So I threw out a fleece. And sure enough, all things that I asked for, God did. And then I came back home and woke up that next morning after church and on Monday, and I called I called Wayne Barber, and I said, "Wayne," I said, "God led me to this passage of scripture in Jeremiah chapter 1. And I said, and I read it, and it's when God let me know that He wanted me to be in the ministry." And he started cracking up laughing. I said, "What are you laughing at me for?" He says, "Welcome to the ministry, big boy." He says, "That's the same passage of scripture that God gave me when He called me into the ministry." And I said, "Oh man, oh no,
You're cooked.
I'm cooked." And so But, I learned so much
Yeah.
about how the church operates and went to seminary and did all that. That's a different path. But to learn how a church operates is totally different. I came out of the world, the business world,
Yeah.
and I understand contracts, understand the proper order and all that. But church is different.
Yeah.
And so I realized that at an earlier point in my career as a pastor. I made some mistakes at my first pastorate, because I thought that, the pastor was really the lead person when no,
Um,
no, you're kind of like well, you're kind of like the king, but the prime minister makes all the
Yeah. All
all
the
the
decisions,
decisions. You're just a figurehead.
Yeah.
And so I realized that, and I thought, okay, well, how can I make this work? And I learned, simply, you find the other little people inside the organization, inside the church, that really are the ones who are the movers and shakers within that particular operation. And I learned who those people were. When they talked in a meeting, heads turned to them. Other people talked, nobody looked at them.
Yeah.
I knew that person is not an influencer.
Was that terribly different than the business world for you? Because I would imagine you picked up a lot of skills in the business world that you've applied
Yeah.
to your church.
Well, the first pastorate, I wasn't able to do that. I gave them some suggestions,
Yeah.
but I told them I wasn't going to live in a parsonage, because when the pastor dies, the parsonage, they move the spouse out
Mhm.
quickly. And I said, no, I'm going to buy my own home, and you give me a housing allowance. And it goes to my wife. The house goes, and so she doesn't have to worry about uprooting it or anything like that. So from a business point of view, at the first pastorate, I gave them some points, but they weren't able to absorb most of the things that I said because they weren't structured that way.
Mhm.
But the way we're structured is we have elders who take care of the policy. We have the deacons who they take care of the people, and then we have the trustees who take care of the property. And as the pastor, I'm kind of like the CEO of the operation. And we have budgets, and every ministry has a budget. And at the end of the year, they justify their budget going forward. And that's the business side of it. And people say, "Well, you ought to operate by faith." I said, "I do, but there has to be
Yeah.
organism. I got to know what's the bottom line, because if I don't know what the budget is at the end of every month, I'm just operating in the dark."
And you
so,
want the church to continue.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we've done some things and kept it going
Yeah.
through COVID and all that. We were able to make some decisions so that we were able to recoup a lot of things, because from a business standpoint, I understood the business side of it. And Malden and Jenkins, they would send me things because they were my accountants. And so they told me about things that were available to us from the government. And so we took advantage of that. And we
You made it through COVID.
made it through.
And I want to get because we're running a little bit long. I want to make sure listeners know if someone's listening to this and they're curious about New Covenant Fellowship Church, how would you describe it in terms of someone who's never been there before? What would be the thing that would be attractive to them?
Well, our slogan is a place for every race, and that kind of says it all.
Yeah.
But we're a hugging bunch of people.
A hugging bunch of people. I like that too.
Yeah, yeah. And so I remember one lady, she came to our church when we first started, and we told everybody, said, "Look, hug somebody." And so I said, that's what we want to be known for, is a hugging bunch of people and a place for every race. And so she was hugged so many times. She sent me a letter back, and she said, "I want to tell you something. The last time I was hugged was by my ex-husband, my late husband." And she said, I haven't been hugged by anybody in anybody's church except for yours. And she said, I want to tell you, keep it up, because you don't know how important a hug is from somebody that's just a stranger who really means well, and it's genuine. It's a genuine hug, and I never forgot that. But a lot of the things that we do, we just do because we had a marketing company do a marketing survey for us of 2,500 people in the 3-mile radius of what people wanted out of a church and what they didn't like, because I wanted to know where we were going. And a lot of people that started church say, well, we're going to start a church and we're just going to have this. No. Why would you start a church in a place that you're going to call a place for every race and not know that there's going to be enough people there to support that particular idea? And so we had a marketing company, Percept Marketing. They're no longer in business, but they're out in LA. And they came back with the finding, and I still have my information in my binder today. And they told me everything that people did not like about church. They don't like the baskets being passed out, and they don't like announcements being read when they already got it in the bulletin. All those little things. They didn't like that stuff. We don't do any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't pass the basket. You pass the basket when you're coming in, and you pass the basket as you're going out. And you see somebody put an envelope in the basket. It's like the lead sheep. A lead sheep leads the rest of the sheep. And if they see you jump over a stick, then everybody, all the other sheep coming after them will jump over that stick, even if it's not there.
Is it fair to say that your move to Chattanooga changed your life?
It did. I don't know I don't know where I'd be right now in the music business because it's changed so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of the divisions that they used to have, the black division per se, a lot of the people that are there that were there when I was there, none of them are in the business anymore because they've eliminated them.
Yeah. Before I get to the last question, Bernie, I want to remind our listeners of the tremendous support we get from our presenting sponsors. EPB, get EPB fiber optics for the world's fastest community-wide internet. And Rockpoint Bank, your local banking partner, your business, your bank, your future. As a reminder to our listeners, if you like what you hear on My Morning Cup, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. And Bernie, here's your last question. What would you tell that 25-year-old Bernie Miller is important for a happy life?
Well, happiness is a result of things that happen. It's from the word happenstance. And if you're waiting for things to happen to be happy, you're never going to be happy consistently. My thing is find contentment in whatever it is that you're doing. And if you have contentment in whatever you're doing, if you're content with where you are in life as a human being, then I think that's the most important thing. My contentment, it comes from my relationship with God. I'm content in that. Some people, they have people that they want around them to be content. Well, that person is going to die. So what's going to happen to your contentment? It's going to die with them. So find something that's eternal that you can put your faith in and find contentment in that. And it really just branches out from there. Because if you're content in this area of your life, and there's an anchor for your life and the way you think and all that to me is more important than happiness because things have to continue to happen. And life ebbs and flows. And I'm happy with where I am, what's going on in my life. I wake up content. And out of that contentment, there are times when, things happen. But that's life. But I find the light at the end of the tunnel.
I think that's a very realistic approach. We all hang so much on, if I could just get to this point, I'll be happy, or if this happens, I'll be happy. But you really got to just get comfortable with yourself and content with yourself.
Yeah.
I heard a definition, and I like the way you explained the origin of happiness and happenstance. I heard a definition for happiness, and I've applied this. Happiness is quality of life minus envy. If you could just quit looking at other people and realize what you've got is pretty darn good and you're content with yourself.
Yeah. The Apostle Paul wrote in Philippians, I have learned to be content. Contentment is something that you have to learn.
Boy, what a great point that is, because it doesn't just happen. You have to teach yourself. You have to train yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, like my wife and her birthday was here on the 24th. And so she loves a certain kind of sweet, and she'll eat it for her birthday, and she'll splurge. I know that sweets are not good for me, and so I can discipline myself, and so I can just have one little small taste of her cake, and I'm okay. And she says, well, how is that possible? I said, well, I used to be a junkie, And so, the first high, nothing else ever, nothing after that is the same, and that first bite, that's all I need.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with that one little bite. I don't need 10 or 12 different bites to make me, because
you're chasing that feeling from that first bite.
First bite,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got it. And she laughs at me, but, it's something that I just feel, life to me is it's always waking up with, being content with what I have,
Yeah.
and my wife, she has her 2009 car. I got my 2011, and we don't want anything else,
I'm with you.
I mean, it's just,
Get you where you're going.
yeah, I mean, it hasn't broke down. I keep them serviced.
Well, Bernie, you have a remarkable story and a remarkable life. I'm so glad you're in Chattanooga, and I've gotten to know you. And I think a lot of people need to know
No, thank you.
more about you.
I appreciate the time.
Thank you for taking time to do this.
Yeah, thanks for the coffee cup.
Oh, absolutely. I look forward to the mixed brands in there.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to fill it up.
Thanks for listening to My Morning Cup, a podcast by Costa Media Advisors. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. I release a new episode each week, so be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts.